All right, ready to dive back into the CompTIA plus 220-1102 exam.
Let's do it. We're tackling security this time. You ready to get your digital bodyguard game on point?
Absolutely. After conquering the hardware portion, I'm feeling pretty confident. But security,
Yeah.
it's a whole different beast, right?
You bet. But you'd be surprised how much the hardware stuff ties into keeping things secure.
Oh, really?
How so?
Well, just think about physical security for a second, like actually locking down your computer.
Yeah, that's important too, not just passwords and software.
Exactly, especially in those sensitive environments. Out of sight, out of mind, as they say. But don't worry, we'll cover it all.
Okay, good to know. So for everyone following along on our deep dive today, we're not just learning definitions here, we're prepping to conquer those exam questions.
Exactly. Consider this your boot camp for all things 220 around round O2 security. We'll break down the tough concepts, give you some real-world examples, and even show you the kinds of curveballs they throw at you on the exam.
Love it. Sounds like a plan. So where do we start?
Let's kick things off with mobile devices. All right, mobile devices it is. Everyone's got one glued to their hand these days.
True that. And that means they're a prime target for all sorts of security risks. First up, let's talk MDM and MAM.
Okay, MDM and MM. Those sound a little intimidating.
Not really once you get the hang of it. MDM is like, think of your IT department having a master control panel for every single device in the company.
Gotcha. So MDM, big boss control. What about MAM?
MAM is more about managing the apps themselves. It's all about making sure only authorized apps are on those devices and that they're kept up to date and secure.
So MDM, the big picture, MM, more focused on apps.
Got it. You got it. Now imagine this. You're at a coffee shop sipping on your latte and you connect to their public Wi-Fi. What could go wrong?
Pretty much everything. I mean, public Wi-Fi, that's like an open invitation for someone to snoop on your stuff.
Exactly. And that's where strong wireless security protocols come into play. Primarily WPA2 and WPA3.
Okay, WPA2, WPA3, I've definitely heard of those.
Yeah.
They're the ones that keep my Wi-Fi, actually my Wi-Fi.
You got it. Think of WPA2 as your standard security guard. It's been around for a while, knows the ropes. WPA3, though, that's like the new guy, all high-tech and stuff. Uses even stronger encryption to keep those unwanted guests out.
So when it comes to security, WPA3 is the way to go.
You got it. It's the gold standard for Wi-Fi security.
Gold standard. Love it. But what about other wireless technologies? I mean, Wi-Fi is huge, but I'm sure there's more on the exam, like Bluetooth, NFC, all that good stuff.
You're right. There's a whole world of wireless tech out there, each with its own security considerations. Bluetooth, for instance, it's got that limited range.
Right. Which is a good thing, security-wise. Like, someone can't hack my headphones from across town or something.
Exactly. That limited range is its own form of security. Then you've got NFC, or near-field communication. That's all about those super close-range interactions.
Oh, like contactless payments.
You got it. Tap and go. The super short range of NFC actually makes it really secure for those types of transactions.
Huh, who knew? So what about RFID then?
Good one. RFID, or radio frequency identification, it's all about tracking. Think inventory control, keyless entry, even those microchips we put in our pets.
Speaking of things we want to keep safe, let's talk about everyone's favorite, malware.
Ah, yes, the digital bad guys. We've got viruses, worms, Trojan horses, rootkits, the whole gang's here.
Okay, so starting with the classics, what exactly is a virus?
Viruses, they're like those annoying little bugs that latch onto a program or file and then just replicate like crazy, spreading to other files and systems.
They're like a digital cold.
Kind of, except these colds can really mess up your computer. Now, worms, they're even sneakier because they don't need to attach themselves to a program.
Oh no, really?
Yep. They spread through networks, exploiting vulnerabilities and replicating themselves as they go.
Like little digital ninjas.
Exactly. And then we have the Trojan horse. Just like in the story, it disguises itself as something harmless.
Like a game or something.
Exactly. But once you download it, bam, it unleashes its payload. And that could be anything from stealing your data to taking control of your whole computer.
Yikes, that's scary.
It is. And then there are rootkits. Now, these are the pros of the malware world.
Pros. Like, they're really good at being bad.
Unfortunately, yes. Rootkits bury themselves deep in your system, making them incredibly hard to detect.
So if a virus is like a cold, a rootkit is like
Like a silent but deadly disease.
we need to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. We've talked about strong passwords, avoiding suspicious links, but sometimes it's not about the technology, it's about us.
The human element. You mean like social engineering?
You got it. Social engineering is all about manipulating people into giving up sensitive info.
Oh, right, like those phishing emails everyone talks about.
Exactly. Those emails disguised as, I don't know, your bank or something. They try to trick you into clicking a bad link or handing over your password.
So sneaky. Okay, so
Yeah.
besides common sense, what can our listeners do to avoid falling for these social engineering tricks?
Well, first off, always double check the sender's email address. Does it really match the company it's supposed to be from?
Oh, good point. I've almost fallen for that before.
And hover over any links before you click them. See where they actually lead. If it looks fishy, don't risk it.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
100%. And never, ever give out personal info unless you're absolutely sure you're dealing with the real deal.
Got it. Verify, verify, verify.
Exactly. Now, enough about the scary stuff. Let's talk about actually securing those workstations. It's like building a digital fortress.
I like the sound of that. A digital fortress. Where do we start?
First things first, a strong password. And I don't mean password 123.
No, definitely not. What makes a password strong enough to hold up this digital fortress?
Think long and complex. Uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, those special characters nobody can remember. Throw it all in there.
The more the merrier, right?
You got it. And on the exam, you'll probably see questions about specific password requirements, like minimum length, using a certain number of those special characters. Know those requirements like the back of your hand.
Got it. Strong passwords. Check. What's next in our fortress building adventure?
Data encryption. This is like locking those sensitive files in a vault, making them unreadable without the key.
Okay, data encryption. How does that work?
Well, it basically scrambles the data, so even if someone gets their hands on it, they can't make sense of it without the decryption key.
So it's like speaking in a secret code.
Exactly. And you'll definitely need to know about encryption tools like BitLocker for Windows. It can encrypt your entire hard drive.
Wow, the whole thing. That's intense.
It is. But that's how you keep data secure, even if your device goes MIA.
Okay, so we've got our strong passwords, we've got our data encrypted. What else?
Firewalls. Think of them as your first line of defense against those digital intruders. They control what comes in and out of your network.
Like a security checkpoint. But aren't all firewalls the same?
Not quite. You've got your hardware firewalls, which are often built into routers, and software firewalls that live on your computer.
So it's like having a guard at the gate and another one at the front door.
Precisely. Double the protection. Now, get ready for a tricky exam question. What's the difference between a stateless and a stateful firewall?
Ooh, good one. Okay, so stateless firewalls, they're like those security guards who just check for an ID, right? Don't really care who you are as long as you have the right credentials.
Exactly. They look at each packet of data in isolation. On the other hand, a stateful firewall, it's like a guard who remembers your face, knows your routine.
So if something seems off, they're going to notice.
You got it. They keep track of active connections and can spot patterns that might indicate malicious activity.
Stateful firewalls, the Sherlock Holmes of the security world. I love it.
Exactly. Now, let's switch gears a bit and dive into some admin-level security. We're getting a bit more technical here.
Bring it on.
All right, first up, user account control. Ever heard of it?
UAC. Yeah, I think so. It's like limiting what users can do on a computer.
Exactly. You don't want every user to have admin rights. That's just asking for trouble.
Right, because even accidental changes can cause chaos.
Exactly. So UAC lets you control who can install software, change system settings, all that important stuff.
So it's all about giving people just enough access to do their jobs and not a single bit more.
Exactly. The principle of least privilege. Speaking of which, remember those file systems we talked about earlier? NTFS and FAT32?
Right. NTFS is the more modern one, right?
You got it. And from a security standpoint, NTFS is the clear winner. It's got all those fancy features like file and folder permissions, encryption. It's like a security system for your data.
Okay, NTFS it is. Anything else our listeners should know about NTFS?
Well, one of the cool features is disk quotas.
Disk quotas. What are those?
It's basically a way to limit how much storage space a user or a group of users can use.
Ah, so you can prevent someone from, like, filling up the entire hard drive with cat videos.
Precisely. It helps keep things organized and prevents those disk-full errors.
Disk quotas, gotta love them. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Strong passwords, encryption, firewalls, UAC, NTFS. Our listeners are well on their way to building an impenetrable digital fortress.
They're getting there. But before we get too comfortable, remember, security is an ongoing process. It's not just about setting it up once and forgetting about it.
That's a good point. What else do our listeners need to remember?
Well, for one, stay informed. The world of cybersecurity is constantly evolving. New threats emerge all the time.
So how do we keep up?
Read industry blogs, follow security researchers on social media, attend webinars. There's a ton of resources out there.
Right, because the bad guys aren't just sitting around. They're always coming up with new tricks.
Exactly. And the best defense is to stay one step ahead.
Okay, so stay informed. Anything else?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're not sure about something, or if you encounter a security issue you can't solve on your own, reach out to someone who knows more than you.
There's no shame in asking for help.
None whatsoever. There are tons of online forums, communities, and even professional security services that can help you out.
Right, because sometimes you need to call in the big guns.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm feeling much more prepared to tackle the 220.11.02 security domain now.
Me too. And remember, it's not just about passing an exam. It's about protecting yourself, your data, and your digital life.
All right, time for the ultimate test. Let's dive into some exam-style questions. Ready to put on your troubleshooting hats?
Hit me with your best shot.
Okay, scenario 1. Imagine a user comes to you practically in tears because they clicked a suspicious link. Now their computer's moving slower than a sloth in a snowstorm. What's the first move, Sherlock?
For first things first, you got to isolate that infected machine from the network. Like yesterday, we don't want that potential malware spreading to other devices.
So unplug the Ethernet, disconnect the Wi-Fi, basically cut off all contact.
You got it. Quarantine is key. Then boot that computer into safe mode. It's like a limited diet for your computer, only loads the essential stuff.
So it's less likely the malware will even run in safe mode. Smart.
Exactly. Makes it way easier to get rid of. Now, while we're in safe mode, it's time to unleash the big guns, a full system scan with your antivirus software.
Hopefully that catches the culprit. But what if the antivirus comes up empty? Or the computer's still acting funky? What then?
Time to call in the specialists.
You mean?
Yep, dedicated malware removal tools. These things are designed to hunt down and obliterate even the sneakiest malware.
Sounds like just what the doctor ordered. Okay, scenario 2. You're setting up a brand new workstation for a client who's obsessed with security. What are some must-do configurations to make that computer Fort Knox level secure?
All right, let's build a digital fortress. First, enable that firewall. And remember, we want both hardware and software firewalls for that double layer of protection.
Right, because why have one security guard when you can have two?
Exactly. Next, those software updates, those are non-negotiable.
Yeah, those always seem to pop up at the worst times.
But
They're important.
crucial. They often include security patches that fix vulnerabilities. Think of them as plugging holes in your digital armor.
Gotcha. So keep everything updated. Okay, what about user accounts? We don't want just anyone waltzing in and changing important settings, right?
Absolutely not. This is where user account control comes in. It's like having different levels of security clearance.
So not everyone gets to be president.
Exactly. Only give admin rights to those who absolutely need them. Everyone else. Standard user accounts, please.
Right, because even with the best intentions, accidents happen. And since we're talking about preventing those accidental slip-ups, any recommendations on the file system front? And TFS still the gold standard.
Absolutely. And TFS is the way to go for security. Remember those file and folder permissions, encryption. It's a whole security system for your data.
And TFS for the win. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground here. Our listeners are practically security experts now. Any final words of wisdom before we wrap up our deep dive into the 220.11.02 security domain?
Just remember, securing a system is an ongoing process. Stay informed about the latest threats, practice those safe computing habits, and don't hesitate to reach out for help if you need it.
Beautifully said. And to you, our dedicated listener, congrats on making it through another deep dive. Keep those firewalls strong, those passwords uncrackable, and we'll see you in our next episode. Happy studying.